I want you to understand something. This literally is a situation where I'm in dire financial straits, and if this stands where I'm going to be making half as less money on YouTube as I ever did before, starting now, I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to have all my shit reclaimed. You know, credit card bills are going to go default. I'm probably going to have to declare bankruptcy. I'm going to lose everything. And with me tonight is my third and final where is my third and final co-host? Hello? What the hell? Hi. Oh.
Hello, Phil.
Hello, it's someone on the internet who you might know, or you might not, whose name is Gahul. Who is that? Who the fuck is that? What the? And ladies and gentlemen, my third co-host here on Smart Guys, now for the WrestleMania build-up show, is actually the Shockmaster in the flesh. But no, that was the Shockmaster gag. Very well done, by the way. Nice, you pulled that one off. Looked really good. So I think we should do a little bit of an introduction. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Mm-hmm. Long ago, in the distant year of 2021, I co-hosted a wrestling podcast with one Ashton Parks, PPP.
Whoa. Hold on. No. Well, I don't believe you, because PPP is not a fan of pro wrestling. All right, we all know that PPP hates it. Only he's outright said on his show, only hearted people like pro wrestling. So there's absolutely no way that this guy would have possibly covered pro wrestling in the past or talked with anyone else about pro wrestling. He only did this show with me to make fun of me, and we all know this. He said this publicly. Yeah. So I don't believe you, man. I hope you've got a lot of receipts and dirt about this guy, because I don't think that right now it's a very convincible argument. People coming in here and trying to start drama will be banned instantly. It's that simple. I'm not one for drama. You know that. Everyone knows that. I'm not a drama dude. There's no feuds starting because some idiot comes on my stream and says, this guy said something about you, and this one said this, and that. I'm not 5 years old. This is not schoolyard, nonsense.
Well, listen, man. If he wants to say only parts like wrestling, well, you know what? Then he's a I'm a we're all a big group here, man. What can you say? I like wrestling. What do you mean he doesn't? We talked about wrestling it was literally over here. Our first interaction online really was a pretty heated debate about pro wrestling, and he had actual strong opinions about pro wrestling. And I'm assuming he still does to this day. He's just talking out his ass to get a rise out of people, but what can you do? But yeah, man, way back in the day, 2021, yes. We hosted a show called 5 Pounds of Gunt. It was me and PPP. It was on my channel, only 5 pounds. It was supposed to be 10 pounds of Gunt, like the 10 pounds of gold NWA title, right? But a little bit stupid, frankly. What can you do? And I got the math wrong. I said 5, but it was 5 pounds of Gunt. Ran for a good couple episodes. Ran for about a year. We had a good time. It was fun. It was actually
not bad.
2020. Eventually, though, like all great things, all great internet shows, ended up in a blow up of drama where we just it was live on air. The final episode of 5 Pounds of Gun, which is on my channel right now. Yeah, we had about like 15 people, 20 people watch it. No one was really watching. It was mostly because it was on my channel. I don't have a very popular channel. But you're looking for 5 Pounds of Gun season 2, episode 3. It's the final episode. Okay. About an hour in, we just fucking devolve and descend on each other. And he just starts ripping me a new one. I start ripping him a new one. All of this centered around a contention point, which was PPP's e-girlfriend. Or rather... Hold
on. I'm not in on all this lingo. E-girlfriend. Are you saying that it was a girlfriend that he had that was solely online and he didn't spend time with? Are you saying that it actually wasn't even a real girl? It was like an avatar? Like, what does e-girlfriend actually mean?
Yeah, so it's his online girlfriend. He actually had multiple online girlfriends, multiple at the same time. He was the PPP, the pup of a pimp game, as he said.
Someone sent me a waifu body pillow off Amazon, I would burn it or throw it out. I have a fucking wife. I'm not a loser who sits around with a fucking body pillow that looks like a fucking anime girl. I'm not some 15-year-old pimple-faced loser. I'm a 37-year-old married man, goddamn.
So this whole blow-up shit happened. We stopped doing the show because I got mad at this guy for hanging out with this girl named Snacks. But
so Snacks, this was a real person who went online by Snacks. This wasn't a catfish. This was actually a real person who existed.
A real woman who wanted to have e-sex with PPP, which is great for him. Yeah, if more power to him, frankly, I understand that. But reality is, this e-girl, I did some research. I did a little digging because he kind of like, sent her to try to embarrass me on my stream a couple of times, sent her into my Discord to like make fun of me, just being playful banner. But I'm paranoid.
While you were doing the show, he was doing this, right? This was after the fact.
While we were supposedly friends and doing the show.
Okay.
So I did some digging into this girl. Turns out this Snacks e-girl, who, by the way, he cheated on a previous Irish e-girl, who I don't know that person's name, but he had a
How do you
e-girl.
cheat? Wait. How do you cheat on an e-girl? It's not a real relationship. How could you be cheating? I don't even, what?
I know. Well, he was e-dating this one girl, and then he started e-dating this other girl at the same time, and they would, take photos where he had them put their heads in the toilet. He would send them foot pics and, ask for high heel photos and stuff. Really not very fun stuff. And, they would send him, they would draw him with Cyndaquil from Pokemon, which that's actually, someone actually posted online.
What? For real?
Yeah, they posted a photo of that online. That was on, if you go to Kill Kino Casino stream with me a couple of weeks ago, which, by the way, on that show, I promised I wouldn't talk about PPP again, but it's with Darkside Phil, man. I can't. It's the legend. It's the legend, Darkside Phil. How could I not take the opportunity to come on this show?
For the record.
Hold up. Yeah.
About this e-girl. I said, I'm not going to make a video about PPP. I'm going to make a video about this e-girl. And he knew about this, and he's like, we knew this before this stream. We knew about this. I told him months ago that I was going to do this. And then on this 5 Pounds a Gun, he starts confronting me like, oh, you're gonna try and burn me with this stuff. It's like, well, listen, man, you're associating with this e-girl. And if it's one thing with a weird e-girl, but this shit was not good. And I'm going to go into some detail here because what I'm about to say is like serious allegation shit. And I don't want to come up with no receipts because I do actually have multiple witnesses.
Wow.
Multiple people who have come forward about this after the fact to talk about this shit, where this e-girl Snacks, who, mind you, if you're a guy in PPP's position, put yourself in this position, right? If an e-girl showed up and said, I want to date you, man, handed herself to you on a silver platter, it'd be hard to say no. You probably wouldn't look into her backstory, which I understand. But it wasn't that. He actually had multiple e-girl options. At least one. He chose this e-girl over another e-girl.
And
yeah, this last episode was just after he got kicked out of his house with his friend, who used to live with his friend named Surfer. Now, I don't know if he's talked to you about Surfer.
No, I know nothing about this. So he got kicked out of his own house. No, I don't know. I am a newcomer to all the lore. I don't involve myself with this stuff online. So he was a nobody, basically, is what you're saying. He wasn't any big shit. He didn't have a popular show or anything. One thing I want to call out here, because you're dropping names. Isn't it funny? It seems like everyone who this guy associates with, he has a big falling out with and ends up basically trying to dump on at a later date. You just named Ethan Ralph. You named Dick Masterson. Obviously, me, everyone who he does stuff with, there's some drama. And the next thing you know, he just takes it upon himself later on to turn on this guy or whoever it is. I mean, it just seems like a running pattern.
He was living in Surfer's house without paying rent, right? That's where he lived, was in Surfer's couch without paying rent. And Surfer was his best friend for years. They went to the same church together. They worked together. Surfer was like his real life friend. And they had a very public falling out where Surfer called the cops on him because PPP was physically assaulting him, which I don't want to talk or speak for Surfer or PPP involved with that because I wasn't there. But, they had a real, actual, end
altercation.
Of shit.
Yeah.
And that was a real friendship that was destroyed by internet bullshit, primarily because of how Surfer interacted with these e-girls, I think. That's my speculation. And Surfer kind of confirmed it to me when I've spoken to him. That the main reason for the blow-up was partially because Surfer was interrupting him on the streams because, frankly, Surfer's a very entertaining person. And so they had their big blowing up, and that was a couple months later than we do our last 5 Pounds a Gun show, basically. And the whole crux of this is, I don't like Snacks. I'm friends with Surfer, too, so I was kind of pissed that you can see both sides who instigated that thing, but I was pissed that they allowed that shit to blow up the way they did. I was pissed at him.
The thing that I don't get is this is an e-girlfriend, right? So she's not around physically. How is she interjecting herself into these relationships, with Surfer? And why is there even involvement? You would think that if you had a relationship, you would want to keep that separate from everything else you're doing, keep it out of drama and everything. But it seems like that's the opposite. That somehow because he had this e-girl Snacks, that it somehow permeated into everything else. That's kind of what I don't get. Like, how did everyone else get involved in it?
When you spend 6 hours a day on a Discord call with these e-girls, you know, I mean, that's when what you're primarily doing when you're not streaming or, you know, whatever the fuck you're doing. That's like he would basically hop off the streams and get on with these e-girls, from my understanding. And obviously he lives in Surfer's living room, basically on his couch. He doesn't have a private
So it's
space,
kind of hard to, exactly. There's no privacy there. Okay, I gotcha. That makes sense.
But,
Okay.
you know, and all this being said, it's like, why, you know, at first I was like, I shouldn't dog on this guy for having an e-girl. I disdain it because it's not a, you know, this specific e-girl was like, you know, it's just one of these like scummy like people who float around these like Discords. So you can just tell is like no good. Like literally, and I will say this, I talked to some of the people she's with before, and I'll get into that later, but literally we're talking like the Discord server bicycle, if that makes sense. Like, you know, she'd been like, you know, trying to have e-sex, and literally you guys, you have guys flown out to her from these Discord calls to have sex with her at her home, which is it's like,
What?
you know, just
This whole thing blows my mind because, you know, I'm 43 years old. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Can't you just find someone who you can be with in person, who's a real in life relationship? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just crazy to me. I don't know.
And I don't want to throw stones in glass houses. I'm a very fat guy. I'm not skinny, but PvP is a death fact, right? His only option is an e relationship because he can't physically. Right now, he can't physically leave the house. You know, at the time he could barely get to the toilet. You know, and when he was with Surfer, so he was basically, you know, immobile. He's basically handicapped through fat, right? He can't leave the house, and any girl was going to go out with him, she would have to come to him. And I mean, frankly, I don't want to get into the fat shit because I'm very fat. I don't feel comfortable with that. But I mean, that's the actual
mission failed. We'll get them next time.
You know, and there's no fucking, frankly, I want to shame the guy for that. The shame comes from the choice in the e-girl, right? Because this e-girl Snacks was, I don't know, I'll start with the least crazy allegation, which I know to be true, and then go to the actual like bad stuff. So this Snacks
again,
e-girl,
for the record, I know nothing about what we're, who fucking cares? PPP right now is riding high. And the reason he's riding high is because he caught lightning in a bottle, all right? What it sounds to me like is he was someone who was a lolcow on the internet, and he knows it. He knows how bad of a lolcow he was. He was in lolcow circles, the sector, and he was making content and all that. And at some point, he somehow stumbled upon the perfect formula. I want to do a show with someone else, formerly kind of from this group, and we're going to basically make fun of everyone else, and we're going to act like we're the high horses above everybody else. But in truth, here's the truth about all of this, all right? Anyone who involves themselves in this kind of content and actively wraps themselves up in it on a daily basis is no better than anyone else. On any given day, you're going to fly too close to the sun, something's going to come out, and then you're going to be the new jackass, okay? But this guy, him and his buddy over there on Kino Casino, actively tried to use me for 8+ months.
The Level 666 podcast, straight out of fucking hell, because today, live on the show, it is time to explain to you how over the last 8 months and the last couple of years, all of my planning has finally come to fruition. I robbed Kino Casino.
As a way to get a rise on their show, to get me involved in their content. And then, when it wasn't convenient anymore because it wasn't working, they decided that they were going to turn on me and start being negative towards me. And that's when I had enough. And I cut the cord. But just because you found a way to get popular, making fun of other lolcows, doesn't mean that you're not the ultimate lolcows too.
I will say this, the lolcow sector, and I've experienced this a lot, and especially nowadays with, like, it just always creeps up. When you're on that fringe of the internet, that's like so close to the outer fringes of what like the normal internet is, right? You're really close to a not so good part of the internet that's very fucking bad. That's like illegal. That's like you are committing actual like scumbag crimes and shit. And it's really easy to cross over. Andy Worski's crossed over it a number of times. You know, we don't want to, you know, we all sweep it under the rug and pretend like it didn't happen, but Worski's actually committed like heinous shit in the past. And I don't know, I don't want to say PPP has, because I don't know if he has. And I don't think he has. I don't want to make the allegation. But he is, or he was. I'm not sure if he still is. And I'm sorry if my connections is bad. I'm not sure if I'm dipping or anything. If I'm okay,
it's chopping up a little bit, but it's fine. I've had worse on the show, so it's all good.
Yeah. And the whole point of the story where we're talking about this e-girl snacks, and the reason why I'm talking about, I made a whole documentary about this shit years ago, like after it happened. And he kind of just pushed it away, kind of let it, like, just didn't acknowledge it, said, who cares? This doesn't matter. I don't have to address what I did wrong. It's fine. Sorry, bitch, but revenge is a dish best served cold. You didn't address it then, so now I'm gonna come on here and make you fucking look in the mirror, and see what the fuck you did. And frankly, Phil, what got me and what made me really pissed and want to talk to you was the way he talked about your fucking wife, what he shat on her. That really fucking upset me. And frankly, there's no excuse. I understand it's the internet, we talk shit about each other, but there's no fucking excuse for the way he talked about your wife. So this girl snacks that PPP chose to associate with, right, was a member of a group called the Order of Nine Angles, which is a Nazi Satanist group on Discord.
That's the perfect combo, right? I mean, you got to have a little of both to have the perfect.
You gotta have it both ways. And this snacks girl, not only was a member of the Order of Nine Angles, she was like like I said, the Discord bicycle of the Order of the Nine Angles and these like associated like far right Discord groups. Once you knew about this shit, you would fucking like, you should like do some background checks, right, or anything. But this woman literally sent him like boxes and boxes of candy. I had the theory that she was like a death fetishist, that she would send him boxes and boxes of candy and cookies and shit to get him fatter and fatter.
Right, maybe.
Terrible artist, by the way. She drew, him and Pokemon Cyndaquil naked together for some reason, for who fucking knows what. And this is the guy, by the way. This was when he was doing this. He was at the peak of his like, preacher dump, because his family's a preacher family, right? He's this moral high ground guy.
I've heard this before. Yeah, I heard a little bit about this, that apparently he actually grew up in a preacher family and everything, which is crazy to me to see where you ended up, right?
I mean, going after guys like you called Dax, Dick Mason Diddler Dax and stuff. Like he would go after these guys really hard and be really, really like, I'm the morally upstanding one. I'm the morally upstanding guy who can talk to God. I will call the wrath of God down upon ye, right? When in the fucking background, he's dating a Satanist who, when he goes on the show with Worski, it's acting like this, it's a big deal, big time Andy Worski. Andy Worski, before PPP, was streaming was like one of the lowest viewed, no one gives a shit streamers. Andy Worski coasted off of PPP success to make it big, basically. Right? And he provided him with the equipment and the money to make it happen, but like, before fucking PPP, he was streaming with a guy like Kyler, doing Twisted Minds to like nobody. No one gives a shit about him. And frankly, in a year or two, when PPP and Worski have their big blow up, which will inevitably happen, as we all know, it's a circle of life. What's going to happen? PPP is going to get dumped by Worski. Worski's going to move on to a new show or new co-host, and PPP will just become another of the long line of previous Andy Worski co-hosts, up there with JF and Anal Vape. Right? That's the people. That's who he is. It's a nobody. And frankly, I thought PPP was better than that. I thought he had a chance to make something better of himself, or at least get offline and do something real with his fucking life, which he just hasn't done. And he is, because I consider Kino Casino to be his death sentence. He has success, moderate success online. I mean, if you compare him to actual live streamers, like real ones, it's fucking nothing. They get a couple thousand views, they get some money, whether it's botted or not. They have histories of botting in the past, and I mean, when they first got kicked out of YouTube, they started using like really sketchy payment sites, like ones that like Russian shit, where like they would steal your credit card number and stuff afterwards.
Jesus.
And they said, please use this power chat, whatever the fucking was called, to give us money, because they can't deal with being banned from they can't lose their money income for even a week. But the reality is, this is his fucking death sentence. He's achieved mild success, not enough to actually like lift him up to like be like set for life, but enough to keep him like comfortable and fat for like a couple years. And when it all comes down to it, the Uber Eats ordering, the fucking nonstop, like no movement, no need to have activity, shoving his face full of food, he's going to be dead within a decade. Like the health problems he's gonna have, he's gonna be fucking dead. And it's because Andy Worski's making him do Kino Casino. If he wasn't doing that, if he's actually starving out in the cold, he'd be forced to go get a fucking real job. Which some people say that about you. But, to be fair, you actually spend 8 hours a day streaming, usually, multiple days a week. He doesn't.
Exactly. Listen, I had every intention of being civil and friendly with those guys for as long as it made sense. You know what I mean? Like, I had no intention of turning against them or snaking them, but it just seems like it was inevitable. Like, on their end, it was just going to happen when they saw that doing something with DSP in a positive manner wasn't going to make them money anymore. You knew eventually it was going to flip into let's get to the negative and just destroy the guy instead. And that's what everyone was telling me. And I said to everyone, don't worry, I have control of it, which I did. I pulled the plug when I needed to, but that's when they went crazy. So that's how it kind of ended. But to me, see, here's the thing that I think about, because we're talking about the Hogan thing, right? I think I agree with you. Like, I think that PPP actually does want to have real friends. But for some reason, there's something up here that just doesn't let him. And I don't know if it's...
He treats friends like shit.
If it's a
He treats all his
deficiency...
fucking friends.
It could be depression too, because I'll tell you this from personal experience. Back when I was younger, I really suffered badly from depression. Okay, and I had friends.
Yeah.
Literally, I destroyed friendships in my life for no reason. It wasn't like I don't like this guy or whatever. I literally would just say, "Time to fuck this friendship up," and then I would act like an asshole or not ghost someone completely. And then my depression would make me feel worse. Like it was like an endless cycle. You feel depressed, so you do fucked up things that ruin your life, and then you feel more depressed, and it just feeds itself. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, all right?
Well,
but it was wild the way that he was acting like he wanted to be my friend. I was trying to tell him, nah, dude, there's kind of boundaries. I'm not going that far because I got a life. I got a wife. I'm never going to really be to that extent. And then when he goes too far and actually insults my wife, then he loses it. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe he was angry because I said I wouldn't go hang out with him in Florida, and she was the reason. So that's why he's so angry at her and starts talking shit about her on the show.